The good news is I got a rock over the wall over there at Walmart Thomist, Scholastic Answers. So Christian Wagner unblocked me on YouTube, which was great. Okay. So I was during his live stream, I asked the question, how could NFP be natural when you're not increasing and multiplying? And his answer wasn't good in my opinion, but the main thing he pointed out was this: you're just repeating yourself all the time, John, and that's not good for anybody. So I'm going to effectively shut this conversation down. And I'm thinking, look in the mirror, man. It's the same thing you're doing. I'm John Farrell, your NFP spiritual dictator, and this is Annulment Proof.
They got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, then make a change.
Sure, my man. Sounds good to me, right? Turn it down just a hair. Meaning, go ahead and talk about it a little bit rather than just saying, no more, we're not going to do that. Here, share this tab instead. I got to turn these guys out. I can't even think straight. Speaking of making a change, all right, chill out. The residents of inner city Baltimore, I think Christian Wagner, he sounds like he's from Baltimore. Okay? I know he's a super smart guy, right? So it's tough to be humble when you're like that. So you just tend to, you got an answer for everything, and here it is. But the solution to that is if rather than just be a broken record on it or to keep doubling down, is to invite someone else to talk about it rather than just, no, I'm right and that's it. So here I am, Christian, and I'm going to see if I can get through to you here on a response to what you said in the video. Cool? Let's go like this. By the way, this right here, this is Seth over at deuterocomical, and he's like, hey, over at the conference recently, he goes, can you talk? I asked him, talk to Christian Wagner maybe, and see if he can actually unblock me everywhere. Okay, so he did. There, let me get out of the way. He did, and it was cool. So I did not get unblocked on YouTube, like I said, and I was able to get a question in. So we're gonna listen to what I emailed, and then we're gonna kind of overturn some stuff. Hit it, my man, Christian.
Okay, so how is it natural to use the conjugal act to deliberately not increase and multiply? Okay, so you're not understanding two things. So I will explain these two to you, and this is just it. Okay, my friend Annulment Proof. You're lucky Deuterocomical told me, please have a brief chit chat with Mr. Annulment Proof. Okay.
Otherwise, it's just not going to happen because we can't do that. This topic I've got, as far as that NFP is not natural, it's a deal killer for like every YouTube influencer type, clubby type, whatever, man. Okay, so I did ask him the question, though, how is it natural? All right. And all he did was read that question and didn't even answer it. He didn't even go there. He didn't talk about being natural at all, which is the key point. Sorry, here we go.
So there's two distinctions that you're missing. One is between a negative and a positive precept.
Wrong. Sorry. He doesn't answer very long, so I'm going to just jump in here. He keeps saying NFP or increase and multiply as a precept. That's his key error right there. It's not a precept. It's just nature. And I got a few notes. We're going to get into that.
So there is no negative precept which contradicts doing beside the end of a thing.
I don't think the people who made that Man in the Mirror song know anything about what he's talking about. And this is the kind of stuff people are like, okay, you're saying all this positive precept and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what does it really mean? Give it to me like a little more blue collar. And that's what we're going to do here today, I hope.
There is a negative precept which says that you should not contradict the end of a thing. So, for example, contraception by mutilating our organs, or by somehow, onanism. This would be another example. These are negative precepts. You shall not.
You shall not what? No, increase and multiply. That's what you shall do. Okay. Actually, it's not even a positive precept. It's nature. So there is no you shall not mutilate and stuff. That I guess there is, but it's neither here nor there. This whole thing has zero to do with precept. Okay, so hang on, let's keep going.
Do X, Y, and Z, right? But when it comes to a positive precept is different because a positive precept does not bind at all times, but only insofar as it is conditionally appropriate. So be fruitful and multiply. So the precept to have children, this is somewhat of a positive precept.
Be fruitful and multiply. The precept to have children. This is somewhat of a positive precept. It's not a precept at all. It's not. There's no such thing as somewhat positive. That's why he's stumbling. I think I don't know if he's thought it through. I think he just knows that we have to have NFP. We have to have it. Okay, for a variety of reasons, he's got to have NFP. So we're not going to think too hard about why it's not natural. We're just going to go with status quo. And anybody who brings in new information, we're going to shut them out or shut them down. And we're going to do so. We're just going to run circles around him and call it a day. That's it. That's what he's doing. Okay, let's back up just a little bit. Let him run at it one more time.
Far as it is conditionally appropriate. So be fruitful and multiply. So the precept to have children, this is somewhat of a positive precept. So just like the precept to give alms does not require that every single second of the day or every time.
The precept to have children. There is, sorry to keep interrupting myself and him. There is no precept to have children. And he's talking about giving alms. Hang on.
You use money, you have to deposit alms. That would be completely ridiculous. So first, the distinction between a positive precept and a negative precept. And then second is going to be the distinction between being against, so contra, and being beside, preter. So being against an end would be deliberately destroying or removing the end of something.
Not necessarily. You can be against an end any which way. Okay, you can if you want to kill somebody, you can get out your gun, or you can just cut off their food supply. Either way, you're going to kill them. All right. So you don't have to. What did he say? Directly destroy it or whatever. Hang on a second. And all of this is a total side screen anyway. Sideshow. All this precept stuff. We're going to argue a little bit, but it's neither here nor there because increase and multiply is an office of nature. It's a blessing. It's God, like God said, let there be light, okay? This isn't a precept. We got to have light. No, it's like God made it. It's what it is. The conjugal act is to increase and multiply nature, but you don't have to do it. You don't have to make babies. None of that. There is no command, and I'm going to get into why that's not a command in a minute. Sorry, hang on.
The precept and a negative precept. And then second is going to be the distinction between being against, so contra, and being beside, preter. So being against an end would be deliberately destroying or removing the end of something. So, for example, this would be if I tried to eat food and then make myself vomit. This would be
okay, because the nature, it violates nature. Hello, that's the main question. Not just because it's a sin, it violates nature to not normally digest your food. That's the point.
Bulimia. Oh crap! Probably the YouTube censors pick up on something like that. So this would be deliberately going against, contra, the nature of my faculties of digestion. But something like chewing gum or something like social drinking, these, if sought for deliberate ends, they are not against, contra, the end of the faculty, but are beside, preter.
As long as you don't violate nature by eating, it doesn't matter if you eat a candy bar or something more healthful, or it doesn't make any difference because you're not violating nature. You're just doing the normal eating of the food. But when you use the conjugal act for something other than what it was intended, then you are violating nature. That's the point. That's why I asked, how is it natural to use the conjugal act? He doesn't think, if he has to consider it, you cannot say that nature has anything to do with the conjugal act because it's a precept. Sort of like giving alms has nothing to do with nature, or keeping holy the Sabbath, nothing to do with nature. It's precept. So if it is nature, it has nothing to do with precept, because you can't violate nature no matter how grave the cause.
The end of the faculty. So when it comes to the generative faculty, as long as the positive precept is carried out in accordance with reason.
The positive precept is carried out in accordance with reason. Okay, so he is saying, as long as you are increasing and multiplying within reason, you're fine. So you get to decide what the reason, how much reason. Just like if you're giving alms within reason, giving alms doesn't mean I must give 10% or I must give 100% all the time or whatever. Or keeping holy the Sabbath means something. Never mind. Hang on a second. I'm saying that let's listen to what he said again, so I don't lose my train of thought. Hold on. Let's go back.
Social drinking. These, if sought for deliberate ends, they are not against contra the end of the faculty, but are beside praeter the end of the faculty. So when it comes to the generative faculty, as long as the positive precept is carried out in accordance with reason, and as long as it is
all right. So he completely eliminates the hierarchy of ends right there. Let's just say because the conjugal act, you must pursue procreation. Okay, then the secondary ends come along with it. But he's saying you can pursue the secondary ends, praeter, or alongside, and it's fine. You can pursue that. No, this is why family planning violates nature. Okay, violating nature is sin, but it's because it violates nature. All right, not because it violates precept.
It's not against the end, but only beside the end. You can't claim what you're claiming about its sinfulness. So either engage with that.
Hold on. We're going to come back to this in a minute. I've got to go to the I know you guys hate this. We got to go to the boring part. All right. We're going to go through a little theory. Let me see here. I'm going to change how do I get myself smaller? I'm trying to remember. Hang on a second. All right, we're going to blow through these notes here to try to back up a little of my point when I'm talking to about that marriage is not increase and multiply is not a precept, Christian. So your whole argument is like gone. There's nothing there. We have to start over. But if you just keep saying, don't repeat yourself, we're not talking about this, then we have a dead end and no one can talk and no one gets anywhere. And it's a matter of humility to consider other ideas and talk about them rather than just going, no, we're dismissing it out of hand. And that's what I believe is going on here. So let's talk a little bit. He says he said before I cut him off, he was about to say we need to investigate this through our moral tradition. All right. Be fruitful and multiply, the precept to have children. That's what he's been saying, isn't it? Yes, it is. Pius XII in 1930 and the Lambeth. Oh, by the way, so I emailed the guy because Seth right here, yeah, he talked to him at the conference. He says, "Can you talk to John Farrell at least?" Okay, and so he says, "Cool." He goes, "I'll talk with him privately," something like that. I said, "Okay." So I sent him this nice email, cool, right here, this one, and it basically said, I go, "Christian, look, man, this whole idea of increase and multiply as a precept, it is a Protestant one, it's a radical one, and it's brand new as far as Catholics go. All right, it's not in the tradition. No way. Let's talk about that. And you tell me, Christian, why is increase and multiply a precept, and how do you he got no response. The days went by, no response. Let me check if this email is from him. Nope, it's not. Okay, so be moral, be fruitful and multiply. He calls it a precept to have children. Then, sorry, hang on a second. So, Pius XII in 1930 and the Lambeth Pius XII in 1951 and the Lambeth Anglicans in 1930 agree that it's a precept. But everyone before that said it was a blessing. Just what God did to the act. He took the act and blessed it with procreative power by nature. That's what he did. He didn't say, you need to procreate. He said, you need to, or he said, this is what happens when you do this. Okay. All right. So I said, how can you, so let's look at right quick what Pius XII said in 1951. He calls it a precept for the first time in the history of the church. I'm going to see if I can make this. Okay. For the first time ever in the history of the church, we have increase and multiply, not nature, but a precept. It's one or the other. Okay. He says, so Pius XII is saying in 51, today, there's another grave problem has arisen. The obligation to increase and multiply is being basically thwarted, messed up, trashed, goofed up by NFP. That's what he is saying, okay? Which seems a clear expression of a will contrary to that precept. Woo! Warning! Rah! No! This is where they sneak this in. Everyone's like, increase and multiply. Yes, you can't have any family planning because it violates nature. But a precept can be, quote, violated for grave cause. This is where the whole grave cause thing came from in the first place. 1951, there was no such thing as you can use NFP for grave cause before 1951. You just can't use NFP. It's like, never could. It is an urban myth that NFP was licit before 1951. In fact, it's not licit today, but like Vatican II, everyone thinks it's infallible when it's not, okay? Just like 1951 midwives, everyone thinks NFP was approved then, but it's not. The Pope can't approve it. He can talk about it. He can pretend he did, but he can't. Just like Pope Francis can't approve adultery, but he can say stuff that makes it sure sound like he did. Anyway, so that's where we got precept from. It was snuck in the back door in 1951. Let's keep going. The reason that marriage obliges the partners to a state of life which, even as it confers certain rights, also imposes the accomplishment of a positive work. Oh, really? No, it doesn't. But if you have a precept, if increase and multiply is a command, a duty, then it does impose the accomplishment of a positive work. You got to have a bunch of kids. You got to have how many kids? I don't know. A bunch. That's how many you have to have, right? Because it imposes the accomplishment. If it is a duty, a precept, duty to increase and multiply, concerning the state itself. In such a case, the general principle may be applied. All right, that a positive action, remember Christian was saying this is a positive precept. Okay, it's not thou shalt not. It is thou shalt increase and multiply. That's what he's saying it means. So bad, so dumb, so Protestant. No. But Pius XII, the modernist, started it all. He started saying that increase and multiply is a positive action and may be omitted for grave motives because that is the general principle. Yeah, you should give alms unless you're totally starving. But you gotta be more starving than the widow's mite, I suppose, right? Anyway, if grave motive, you don't have to do it. Independence of goodwill, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Wrong, bad, bad, bad. This is the whole reason I'm making this video. Christian Wagner. We got to get this out of your Baltimore head that increase and multiply is a precept. It's a natural blessing. It is I guess you could call it an office of nature. As this is why it cannot be circumscribed, and there are no exceptions. If you're going to use the conjugal act, it must be per natural purpose. You can't do anything other than increase and multiply with the conjugal act, according to what you're doing. Okay, no grave motives. That has nothing to do with it. Okay, so why am I saying this? Where do I get this? For starters, the Douay Rheims commentary. Douay Rheims is like the Bible of record because St. Justin or whoever the heck translated the thing I can't remember right offhand. It's the Vulgate. It's the real Bible, all right, Douay Rheims. Now, there's commentary in there that has stood the test of time, 500 years. What does increase and multiply mean? This is not a precept. Christian Wagner, did you see those words? Did you hear that? This is not a precept. Now, Christian Wagner has to explain why the commentary in the Douay Rheims, which everyone accepted peacefully the whole time it existed for 500 years, is contradicted by Christian Wagner now and Pius XII now. This is not a precept, okay? As some Protestant controvertists would have it. Boom, that's where it came from, the Protestant controvertists. When did we get that? 1930 Anglicans. That's where we got it. When they were doing the Lambeth Walk wearing their black outfits with all the silver buttons on them and stuff. Yeah. But a blessing rendering them fruitful. For God had said the same words to the fishes and the birds who were incapable of receiving a precept. That is why increase and multiply is not a negative precept, a positive precept, any kind of precept or command or duty or obligation. It's because the same words were given to the fishes and the birds, and they don't just do what God says, other than particular things like the fish gave that little tax coin to those two guys. You know, he opened his mouth, and I'm sure the big whale did what God said, but the fishes and the birds aren't commanded to increase and multiply. It's a blessing of nature. God just made nature to do this, and you don't mess with it. That's what's up. That's why all family planning is and always will be intrinsic evil. Now, the Haydock Bible, I don't know a lot about that, but it's kind of a similar groove, I think, to Douay Rheims. And they also add the same thing. They say, verse, increase and multiply. This is not a precept. Yep, they repeat it word for word. Okay. Then they also say, blessed them not only with fecundity, as had done in other creatures, but also with dominion over them, and much more with innocence and abundance of both natural and supernatural gifts. Increase. Okay, then he says, the Hebrews understand this literally as a precept binding every man at 20 years of age. So people, I guess, old Jews or whatever, they understood it literally like, yeah, we got to have kids, okay, because there wasn't a lot of people back then. And some of the reformers argued, hence, that priests and company were bound to marry. Very prudently, they have not determined how soon. Yes, otherwise, you're going to be a priest and you got to get married at age 20, and like that's going to have some problems there. But okay. Now I know Scholastic Answers likes to talk about the fathers, and he's not afraid to talk about them. So let's see what they say about increase and multiply. But the fathers in general agree that if this were a precept with respect to Adam for the purpose of filling the earth, it is no longer so, that end being sufficiently accomplished. So we don't get to just say this was a precept back then, but it's not now. And even if you say it were a precept, it wouldn't be now. So what is it if it's not a precept? It's a great big, like Stanford Nutting would say, it's a great big nothing. It's not nature or precept. What is it? You're stuck. It's nature. That's what it is. Okay. Here they ask the next question. Does St. Paul wish all men to be like himself, unmarried? Wait a minute. I'm going to think about this. This is interesting. Okay, so St. Paul is saying, no, increase and multiply is not a precept, because he is saying it's better to be celibate. It's a better state than marriage. So if it's a precept to increase and multiply, then you can't have Josephite marriages. And everyone's got to get married. Everyone's got to make babies, okay? Because that's a precept. That's Protestant. Obviously, St. Paul is not saying that, because he's like, no. He wants everybody to be. St. Paul wants everybody to be celibate. That's a higher form of life, but he knows very few people are going to be called to that. That's why I say marriage is not a vocation. It's just a natural state, okay? Religious and stuff is a supernatural calling, vocation. Okay, what about those Anglicans? In 1920, they said, they all got together because the winds of contraception were blowing at that time. You know, Margaret Sanger was, getting going and whatever. So What did the Lambeth Anglicans say about contraception? They said, where did I? Okay. They said marriage has is the primary purpose which marriage exists, as in the institution of marriage. This is super Catholic here, namely the continuation of the race through the gift of children. Marriage exists for the gift of children. Children are a gift. There's no duty, okay? Now, let's go to 1930, where they went ahead and legalized contraception for the first time. What did they change? The duty of parenthood, okay? For the first time ever in the history of Christianity, we have now got increase and multiply as precept. It is a duty. That's where it first changed. Now, anyway, let's go back to the video. Hang on a sec.
So when it comes to the generative faculty, as long as the positive precept is carried out in accordance with reason, and as long as it is not against the end, but only beside the end, you can't claim what you're claiming about its sinfulness.
I didn't claim it was sinful in this question, although it is. I said, why is it natural? That's the question I asked. That's the key question. He bypassed that answer completely, or he never even addressed it. He never talked about nature. He just talked about sin or not. So he's pointing out that, yeah, if you can't just say that a positive precept is intrinsically evil if you don't do it, because there can be reasons why not. But you can't violate nature for any reason.
So either engage with that in accordance with our moral tradition, or
doggone, hold on.
The end, but only beside the end, you can't claim what you're claiming about its sinfulness. So either engage with that in accordance with our moral tradition, or just stop repeating the same things over and over again. Because
good idea. Engage with that in accordance with our moral tradition. So let's go to our moral tradition right quick, my man. Here we go. Let's see what it says. Okay. The Ordinary Magisterium condemned NFP by name. All right. Here we go. Pope Saint Clement of Rome, 1st century. But this kind of chastity is also to be observed, that sexual intercourse must not take place heedlessly and for the sake of mere pleasure, but for the sake of begetting offspring, children. So those are the only two purposes. You got horse and mule, and you got children. You can dress it up as much as you want, call it love, call it bonding, call it unity, call it whatever. It's horse and mule or babies. Those are your two reasons, okay? So they say you don't do it for mere pleasure, but for begetting children. And since this observance is found even among some of the lower animals, it were a shame if it not be observed by men, reasonable and worshiping God. Wow. Okay. In other words, even animals know the purpose because it's nature, okay? God gave them that nature. We have the same, human nature is different, but we have the same. As far as increase and multiply, it is what it is. So the purpose is the same. Just like the purpose of eating is the same for a zebra as it is for a person, the purpose of the conjugal act the same, all right? One more quote, and there's like 18 of them. I'll keep them in the notes. We're not going to read them, though. Pope St. Gregory the Great in 597 AD. Lawful copulation of the flesh ought therefore to be for the purpose of offspring, not of pleasure. Again, you got two purposes, and you have to have it for offspring. And intercourse of the flesh should be for the sake of producing children and not the satisfaction of frailties. So, and again, there's a ton more I could go through, and I'm just going to put them in the notes, but we're not going to do that right now. Christian Wagner. So I'm taking your advice, and I'm saying, let's go ahead and engage with this according to Christian tradition, right? Okay.
Its sinfulness. So either engage with that in accordance with our moral tradition, or just stop repeating the same things over and over again, because repeating the same thing over and over again is not fruitful for me or fruitful for you or fruitful for anybody else who you discuss.
Now, Christian, you are repeating the same thing over and over again because you just keep saying it's a precept. But in fact, you don't even say anything. You just don't say anything at all. You just don't really want to go there. I know you had the video with Eamon, the NFP book guy, but he said that did almost all the talking. In other words, you just kind of want to skim the surface on this, and that's it. And the problem with that is that's not, you can't get to the truth of it, and even, I think there's some motivation behind it. Let's keep going.
Discuss these things with. Okay.
Now, he's going to take another question. Listen to this.
So, yeah, sounds like you just want to use NFP. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a...
So some guy, Derek S., basically is like, he took all the super highfalutin language and all that, and it sounds like you just want to use NFP, which is, you know who's good at that kind of stuff? Rush Limbaugh. You know, he would just come in and say, boom, when someone would give this long-winded thing, and also Michael Knowles is good at it too. There ain't nothing new under the sun. It doesn't have to be complicated when you explain it. So essentially, he's being a little rude here, but he's kind of like Derek. He's saying, yeah, sounds like you just want to use NFP. I think that, I got a mosquito bite back here. I think that a lot of these podcasters, influencers, whatever, it's either because it's the status quo or their wives are like, we ain't having 17 kids. And they're like NFP. Okay. So they've got to, it's either marriage or it's political. So they got the feminism going on or they got the politics. And those two, that shuts off almost all of them. So we have to make NFP work, and we're extremely motivated to make sure our status quo stays in place. I think that's what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But maybe it's not. Anyway, it just sure seems like the guy does not want to go there with someone who can challenge him.
This isn't really a kind thing to do to anybody. This isn't really anything which is really in accordance with right reason either, because the way in which you're considering another person is, rather than being able to substantially respond to what I just said in accordance with our moral teaching,
the way you just are responding to another person. So he's taking it personally. It's kind of like when you say transgender is wrong. You're like, how dare you? You can't judge me, and you're attacking my person. Da, da, da. And this is. But he's hiding behind the moral tradition stuff. I got a load of the moral tradition from the church, everything that existed before 1951, condemning NFP. But we can't go there. Not going to go there. So you're left to saying little things on comments as best you can.
In accordance with the Ecclesiastical Magisterium, in your own pertinacity, you would rather hold on to kind of what is your feelings. This is a very feminine thing that a lot of you guys do.
Again, accusations are confessions. So he's right about just relying on feelings and just, I feel something, so I'm going to shout it out. That's effeminate, you might say, rather than doing like the hard thing of looking at what the truth is and actually admitting it or looking at it. So when anyone starts accusing you of stuff, typically it's an accusation that's revealing they're confessing. Okay. Just stick with the facts, not about accusing somebody.
You hold on to like these intuitions of your emotions, and it causes you to lash out in rage rather than simply thinking about what I'm saying and being able to cogently respond.
Okay. So he's not lashing out in rage, but people can, but I sense a little emotion there with him right now.
It's like a very weird lash out thing that you guys do. It's really frustrating for a lot of people. It's not really convincing for anybody.
Yeah, we already heard that part. So I had to take care of a tire customer and eat lunch and stuff. So let's pick up. We got a couple seconds left of this. I'm going to go to one note, and that'll be it.
Rather than simply thinking about what I'm saying and being able to cogently respond. Like, do you even understand what I'm saying? It's like a very weird lash out thing that you guys do.
He's lumping everyone together. Do you even understand what I'm saying? Yes, I do. And I'm trying to make the counterpoint that proves what you're saying, Christian Wagner, is wrong and Protestant, rather than just block everybody, maybe, and engage with that a little bit. That would be good. Or if it's too, I think it's too much of a hot potato is what I think.
It's really frustrating for a lot of people. It's not really convincing for anybody.
All right. Yeah. Same thing with yourself. If you don't engage and you block and or don't consider counter arguments or anything, it's not really convincing. Oh shoot. Oh, I got to take this call. Hang on a second. Hang on. Okay, that's what I'm saying, Christian. Just look in the mirror at this. You're dishing this out like you don't like what people say and you think it doesn't do any good. Well, rather than, like I said, just kind of condemn and shut the door, respond to the argument that I'm making. It's plain and simple. Anyway, there's one other little quote I want to get from Pascendi, okay? And here it is. Pascendi, when an adversary rises up against them, the modernists, with an erudition and force that render him redoubtable, they try to make a conspiracy of silence around him to nullify the effects of his attack. That is exactly what's going on. When you bring up NFP and you are able to actually articulate why it is unnatural and can never be approved, they're going to throw everything at you, or they're going to basically block. And that's kind of what's going on. So hopefully, Christian Wagner does not do that and respond. If you're not opposed to NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay toxic. Michael Jackson, a few years ago, this is way back, he went into a store and he buy some hair cream, and he paid with a $20 bill, and they're like, "Oh, you're so rich. Can I, do I have to give you the money back, the extra change?" And he says, "Make that change. Make that change."